Welcome, everyone, to the Movement Made Better podcast, powered by Stick Mobility. I know today we had a Q&A podcast planned, but a little change on the game plan there, a little improvisation and adaptation here. Instead, we're going to give you guys, the listeners out there, our top 5 individual exercises or ways, systems of training that you may or may not have done or heard of. To give you everyone out there a little bit different perspective and something different to try, and why we really enjoy them and what the benefits are and what we're getting out of it. Neal, you want to go ahead and start with your number 5?
Along with our top 5 exercises, we're also going to give you, Dennis and I's own personal favorite stick exercises that we're currently doing. The one that we feel like we're getting the most benefit personally at this point in our lives. So, for me, my favorite exercises always change, because it just depends on what I'm trying to do and what I'm looking for. And, right now with what's going on in my life, being really busy with stick mobility training and then having, 2 little ones at home, all my exercises are picked so that they take care of a lot of things and I don't need to spend a lot of time, because I don't have a lot of time, man. Recently, it's basically been training at, 4:30 in the morning for half an hour, 45 minutes. So sometimes it's like, all right, Monday I'm going to do this, and that's it. Takes care of a lot. I'm going to do 2 things, and then I'm going to go up, have breakfast and get the day started.
It's a good thing your garage is your gym.
It is, yeah, dude. So I'm lucky.
Because if not, your neighbors would be like, what the hell is he doing over there?
Exactly, man.
At 4:30 in the morning. Oh, that'd be awesome.
So, number 5 for me would be, I love doing climbing drills on the pegboard. And I have a pegboard. I have a custom pegboard in my garage, and it's basically this like 6 by 8 foot wall. It's got footholds. I don't know how many holes it has, but I'm able to pull from different angles. My feet, I can have my feet stay connected to the wall, or I can have them floating depending on how much load I want on my arms. But I feel like it gives me, all the upper body pulling I need, but it also gets me to work different angles. So it's not just the pull up. So I'm getting strong. My grip's getting strong, my shoulders, my lats, and I'm teaching my body how to move in and out of different positions. And I love climbing, and I haven't been able to climb for quite a while now. Well, climbing gyms are closed. Yeah, right now with the 2 little ones, it's really hard to get to the climbing gym or, get outdoors.
The setup that you have, which you'll see in the video here, you can see the setup. That was custom made. So what's the approximate price tag if someone were interested in doing something like you have set up?
Probably a couple grand at least. To get that all, yeah. To get it all set up.
Well, you have a friend that built that for you.
I do, yeah. One of my good friends. Yeah, he owns a construction company, so he was kind enough to help me out there. I had this idea of, I wanted something that I could train for climbing, but I also wanted something that, my wife could use, and as my kids get older, they could use it. And I didn't want it to be, too crazy. I needed it to be adaptable too. So if I had friends come over or clients come over, they could use it too. So it's really scalable in a sense. I could have, a professional climber use it and get benefit, or I could have someone that's just learning how to climb use it too.
And you've already your daughter's already been on it.
Yeah, she's hanging on there.
She's loving
all
it,
the
huh?
time. Yep. I got the little guy out there.
Oh, really?
Doing tummy time. We're just watching.
Yeah.
Putting it in his brain.
He's already
Hey,
seeing it.
Man, this is what you got to do. Your sister's doing it. I'm doing it. Mom's doing it.
What's kind of funny is infants like that. We don't think about, just because they can't communicate doesn't mean that they're not observing. And in his mind, when he's watching you guys on climbing, he's probably thinking processing what he's seen and thinking, I want to be able to do that. I want to mimic that. Right?
Yeah, or at the same time, he's looking at it and go, that's normal. That's just a normal thing.
Right.
My daughter thinks it's completely normal to hang on things.
Yeah. She doesn't even.
So there's no, we're trying to get rid of that fear of all these different motions. What about you, man? What's your number 5?
My number 5 is actually using Physioballs with bands. And Physioballs and bands create great feedback systems. In the video where you see me pushing against the ball and pulling on the band at the same time, it's teaching me that push-pull apparatus. The ball is fighting back, just like if I was pushing against another person. There is some elements that aren't there, but it's pretty much the closest thing that you'll get to not having a partner with you, but still getting that input that you really want to feel. And then I'm changing body positions, or I'm changing my base of support. So I'm not just staying in one spot. I'm changing my foot position. I'm changing my levels. So I'm getting the hips and the body used to all these different angles and positions while maintaining that full body tension. And the key here is, as you're pushing it on the ball and then pulling on the band, is that feedback all the way down to the ground, and what you're really feeling, how the feet and the legs react to that system of push-pull up top, I think is fantastic. And you do that for 30 seconds, switch hands, and repeat. Do that for a minute. You talk about conditioning. Your heart rate's going to be pretty elevated. So, I think that's a great thing. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and you know what's great about that is the more resistance you get on a band, the harder you have to push.
Yeah. Yes.
So, right. The stronger your pull gets, the stronger your push gets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very true.
Which is great. So, and it kind of simulates, it almost simulates like wrestling, right?
Yeah, it's the closest thing. And because I know we've talked in some podcasts before about people being kind of adverse to before all this COVID, people were still already kind of adverse to touch and feel. So this will help eliminate that, or bring people into that process who really aren't comfortable with doing full contact partner work. You're number 4.
So buddy. Number 4, it's be a front loaded squat.
Ah, very nice.
One of the reasons I like it is that it does challenge that core musculature, but it also, whatever it is, right? If it's a sandbag, if I'm doing a barbell front squat, kettlebell, doesn't matter. Just a front loaded type squat. It really allows me to keep a vertical torso, and, sometimes you see squats that get a little hingy, and you don't, if you want to squat, you squat, right? If you want to hinge, just deadlift. So it's a good way to, to keep that separation between your deadlift and your squat. And I also find it that it's much easier for people to do that maybe have limited ankle mobility, or they're learning how to squat. So that front load gives them a little counterweight to stay more upright.
A lot of times what you just said a few seconds ago especially on a backloaded, if it gets hingy, you're essentially doing a good morning versus a squat.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And so people are like, oh, look at my squat. And you're kind of like, I don't really think that's what that is. It's
like you got a strong good morning.
Yeah, you got a great good morning. But we do need to work on the squatting aspect. So there's that whole thing that we always say, if you're going to hand somebody if you're telling somebody you just handed them an apple and you've actually given them an orange, they're going to kind of look at you like you're a little odd. So make sure you're actually giving the person or doing what the movement actually is. And sometimes there's just and people don't sometimes have the body awareness or understanding that that's what they're actually doing. And also from a practicality standpoint, when we squat and pick stuff up off the ground,
it's always front loaded.
It's always front loaded. Right? I mean, how many... Maybe on the side of the shoulder, right?
Yep.
But other than really a fireman's carry, how often do we actually throw something across the back of our shoulders?
Yeah, unless you're giving people piggyback rides all the time,
right? Yeah, right. Which is great. But that's a totally different thing. So yeah. But most of the time when we squat from an actual just natural movement position, front loaded is where it's number 1, it's just most efficient.
What about you, man? Number 4.
Number 4 is eliminating the ball, the Physioball, and using just the strap. So in the video here, you can see me. I'm actually pushing and pulling the entire time. Same type of principle that I just talked about before, but now I'm eliminating the ball. So now on the strap, as one arm is always pulling while the other arm is pushing. So as I'm going through this movement, the only objective in my head is that both hands are going in the opposite direction. So that way I know I'm always creating a push with one arm and a pull with the opposite. I love this not only for myself, but to really get clients to understand full body connection and really how to create torque and what that push pull mechanism is. And it's really actually pretty difficult when people that aren't used to it, they're going to find that it's pretty challenging, and and it kind of can be a regression or a primary step to using the Physioball. And also on the other side too, it does give you a little bit more room to move, because with the Physioball, you're pretty much keeping it on the wall to really get that feedback. Where with the band, you're just free moving, so you can go pretty much anywhere you want. So it gives you a little bit more range of motion and overall movement to that. So that's one of the top ones that I like that I've been playing around with recently.
Yeah, and another thing about that drill is, I mean, you're working your feet like crazy because you need to create that traction.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, and being able to transition from low to high position, you can even use the opportunity to do the push and the pull and take it all the way to the floor, either in a supine position or a shin box or a cross-legged, whatever you feel. You mix it all up. I mean, we talk about mobility is a global thing. It's just not specific angles. It's not just specific parameters of movement. We want you to be as globally resilient and mobile as you can be. So we want to see, as you're moving naturally, you may actually be very surprised when you record yourself how much range of motion you're actually getting versus in that spontaneous moment when you're not really thinking about it. Right. So that's one of the things where you might catch yourself, but be pretty surprised and go, wow, I squatted pretty good there, where other times I have some issues with it. So taking the mind and distracting it to other tasks and really start to open other things up. Your number 3?
So number 3 would be just any kind of clean variation. So typically, something, when a clean meaning pulling something from the floor to my shoulder, right? So at home, I like to use sandbags or a barbell or a landmine, and sometimes kettlebells, but you get to work power. So you're working some explosiveness. You do have to, with whatever object I'm using. So for example, a sandbag, your body kind of gets rocked. Mm-hmm. So you need to learn how to absorb impact. Just like that front squat, we're always carrying things, front loaded. Mm-hmm. So with a clean, it's basically, hey, how can I get this off the ground to my shoulder? And now from here, I can either walk with it or, so if I'm picking up my kids, it's a motion that you do in natural life, but at the same time, it has a lot of carryover in performance training. Mm-hmm. And so you can change, we can go really heavy, or we can go a little lighter and go really fast. And maybe with a sandbag, I'm throwing this thing. So that is, it's full body posterior chain. You get work some power and explosiveness, and you become more resilient. And that's why it's one of my favorite drills. And I typically, change the type of tool that I use for it, every time.
By changing the tool, you change the movements subtly.
Yeah.
The demands of the movement subtly, as opposed, with a kettlebells have handles on them. Versus a sandbag that we don't have handles on, right? So same movement in essence, but the difference is subtle to maybe not so subtle for some other people.
Exactly. And then, the other thing with changing the tool is that you have to change your stance.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of times with a barbell, your hip width apart, it's you're kind of in this standard deadlift type form. But with the sandbag, you might be real wide, or maybe my feet are a little bit staggered because of the shape of the bag, or maybe you do it from more of a staggered stance with a sandbag. Whatever feels comfortable, and depending on how you want to position your arms. Mm-hmm. But you get that variability there.
And you want to change positions. You want to get used to different positions. Maybe from rep to rep or set to set, right? Yeah. Within the set, change your stance, change your base of position within the set. So that's that can be a little bit of a different thought process than most people are used to.
Exactly. And then that clean is essentially, that's kind of my loaded hinge right there. So I don't, I don't like to deadlift heavy all the time, but I kind of want that combination of strength and power, and the clean just does it for me.
So what typically would be your body, what percentage of body weight are you typically doing when you're doing your cleans?
Gosh.
On average, let's say it's
right
just...
now, like if I'm cleaning those sandbags, so right now I'm about 175 pounds. I'm using anywhere from 100 to 140 pounds with sandbags.
Wow. Damn, good.
You
nice.
know? And then barbells, right now, I don't know. I'd say I'm pretty weak at those right now. And I've been actually, with the barbells, I've been trying to do more of this kind of like a muscle clean, because sometimes I'll press afterwards. So instead of just racking it, on my shoulders there, I'll catch it more in like that military press position.
Yeah, and then press.
And it's also like if I'm teaching someone how to maybe do a clean that may not have the flexibility in their wrists, or that ability to actually get in that rack position, it's another option.
Gotcha.
But for there, I'm getting fairly close to body weight.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. What about you? Number 3.
My number 3. It's a drill that I call floating stones. It's something that I think has multiple purposes. Number 1, it really challenges your ability to accomplish a task. If you, in the video here, you'll see I have these D-balls set out. And the objective is they are basically in a river of lava, so to speak. So once you're on the stones, your objective is to get from point A to point B, but you can't touch the floor, no hands, no feet, nothing. And so there's multiple things here. Number 1, the objects are round, so the balls are round. The smaller the ball, the more it's going to roll, right? So your intention of your movement has to be there. This is not something that you can go full bore speed on. The purpose of this is for you to think about where you're placing your foot, where you're placing your hand. Are you placing it at the correct angle and position to transfer your weight and your load onto the next ball or the next floating stone, so to speak? And knowing that if you place the foot or the hand at the wrong angle, when you go to transfer weight, that stone is going to roll. It's going to roll on you. So it really forces you to think about, what am I really doing? Understanding the intention behind each movement. It's going to challenge your positions through your hips. It's going to challenge your lever length of your body, because you're going to go from a short and compact to really extend it out wide. Gets the feet working, because now you have something different than flat contours. Now you have round contours. So feet are going to work a little bit differently. They're going to work much harder. And it's pretty amazing when people do this drill. Sometimes they're a little bit out of breath, because it's basically, I'll challenge them to stay in a low position, like a crawl pattern position or quadruped. Sometimes I'll use sticks, and so they can start to understand leverage and angles, because the sticks can help them transfer greater distances, and there's a lot of people that they don't get that. Like, I'll set it up and they're like, you can see the fear in their faces. And you're like, no, this is just, think of science. All right. Think of angles, leverage, how to use the sticks to help you transfer weight over. So it's a whole learning process, and there's a lot of different things that you'll get out of that.
And I think another thing, while they're out of breath too, there's, like you said, they're dealing with that fear. So, they're like, oh shit, I don't want to fall over. I don't want to snap my ankle. I don't want to hit the ground. Even though you're not that high off the ground, there's just that little bit of anxiousness, and, maybe they just catch themselves holding their breath a little bit. But, building confidence in all those different positions, man, is huge.
Yeah, it's challenging people to get out of their comfort zone, and the clients that have done it, they've all said that this is something that's not in my comfort zone. And it really helps also with weight transference to the wrists. Yeah. For people that may have issues with that. And your body's going to let you go where it can handle, because your mind, just like the previous drills, your mind is on something else, right? Yep. So you are just trying to accomplish the task, and then the body's going to let you go where it can handle it, pretty much. So self-regulation there.
And another thing that's great is it kind of reminds me of, when you go hiking and you go rock scrambling.
Yeah.
Right? You've got these got little gaps between the rocks, and you've got to figure out, okay, I need to put a little bit of pressure on my right foot, reach my hand over here and not fall down this gap.
Yeah, that was one of my inspirations when I came up with it. I was like, the rock scrambling, going across a river.
For sure.
I mean, when you're across a river, you've got all these rocks. You're trying to figure out, how do I go from rock to rock? And what's pretty interesting is when you go on rocks in the river, they're slippery. They're slippery as hell, right? And kind of people that aren't used to that, city slickers, they get out into the great wilderness and they're novices to this. They think there's rocks going across the river. I'm just going to bing, bang, boom. And all of a sudden, whoop, they slip because they forget. There's a surface between the rock and your foot, and it's called water. And it's going to do some shit to you that you're not used to. And you may end up very well on your ass going down the river because you didn't understand that factor. So, and that's why using the D-balls there can kind of bring that awareness to that person that they may not have had. Number 2.
Number 2 would have to be landmine rotations.
Love them.
I've posted a lot of videos on this. I love them. One of my favorite things right now is using the Omega handle from Pure Motion.
Yep.
You can just, there's so many variations you can do with it, but whether or not you have this specific handle or not, in this video here, you'll see me doing it from a staggered stance, but you don't have to do it from that stance. What I love about just like the clean or some of the squatting motions, we can do this from any stance, and it's just like Dennis's push and pull with the ball. This gives you that wrestling like feel because you're fighting the load from pulling you over. And I love the way that the weight shifts from one side to the other, so you've got to really understand how to transfer weight from foot to foot while maintaining that structure of the core. But at the same time, we're able to work rotation from whether if we're doing the underhand one, so that what's it called, the uppercut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the uppercut right there. This one transfers to golf, transfers to baseball, transfers to fighting, and then the bear fight motion. This could be like just moving someone out of the way. But it kind of gets the, for me, some of these other motions might seem real linear, and this one works rotation and gets me to work those in betweens.
And so you're using the Omega handle here.
I like to use the Omega handle. Yeah,
but the Warhammer is the shit too.
Warhammer's great too. Yep.
Pure Motion.
Oh, they make
phenomenal,
some great stuff.
Awesome stuff.
Great
awesome stuff.
Yep.
Man, there's so many companies out there that people kind of don't. They're not in the mainstream, but they should be. And Pure Motion is one of those companies where you look at their stuff and you're like, man, it's so well designed. It'd be so easy to use, and it's going to be teaching you to movements that you're typically not used to or accustomed to.
Yep.
So yeah, they make some great stuff. So if you don't know about Pure Motion, definitely jump on that company. Great stuff. Neal and I highly endorse using their products.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, big time.
What about you, man? Number 2.
Number 2, offset lever or offset loaded training.
All right.
Man, I'll tell you, I say it all the time. The gym is the only place that people go to lift balanced objects. Folks, when you leave the gym, that shit doesn't happen. All right? If Neal's picking up his daughter or his son, it's with one arm, he's not keeping them centered right here. It's off to a side. If you pick up your groceries, you're carrying your groceries in one hand. Even if you're carrying them in both hands, the weight is not equally distributed. You're just picking up bags and carrying them into the house, or up the stairs. Moving a couch at home, it's offset loaded. I mean, all these things are examples of offset load. And so when we go to the gym, are we really, really thinking about giving the clients or yourself what you really need to transfer to everyday life? And balanced lifts are great. It gives you a nice solid base. But I don't see, in my opinion, I don't see enough offset loaded training, in my opinion, as much as it should be.
Yeah.
You know, if someone here is Neal. Let's ask you this, Neal. If someone were to ask you what percentage of offset loaded training should be in your training protocols, what would you say a good percentage would be?
Probably half, man.
Yeah.
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 I'd say half.
Yeah, I'd say at least half.
At least half. Yeah.
I've had some coaches ask me that, and I'm like, at least half your training should be offset loaded. If it's all balance loaded, the transferability once you leave the gym just really isn't there like it should be. So
yeah, and you know what's great about the offset loading is that you can pick your favorite linear exercise. Let's just say it's the lunge, right? And then we load that weight to your 9 o'clock. So there's more weight, you know, on that left side of your body. So now you're not just working that sagittal plane, you're actually working forces on the frontal plane. Now, if I want to change that load, now let's just say I put it more to 10 o'clock or 7 o'clock. Now what we're doing is we're working a little more of that transverse plane there. So just that little subtle shift of that load, and you know you'll see this a lot in our stick course where we're working the clock system. You know, you take that to a loaded exercise and you can work all these planes of motion, and you don't have to necessarily move in a transverse plane.
yeah. I mean, so in the video here, you see me in a single leg RDL working with the lever offset to one side. So that's really challenging, exactly what Neal just said. Also, something as typical as farmers carries. How many people, when they do farmers carries with kettlebells, they grab a pair of kettlebells that are the same weight, mix it up, grab a light kettlebell and a heavy kettlebell, or grab two kettlebells that are slightly different in weight. Maybe they're off by about 3 or 4 kilos, right? But then, like I said just a few seconds ago, you can make it a huge difference. You can pick two kettlebells that are maybe 10 or 15 kg a separation in weights. So definitely think about that when it comes to when the next time you do some farmers carries.
Right on.
What's your number one?
So
brother?
number one had to be the landmine press. You know, or landmine presses. And, you know, all these exercises, it's hard to say if, you know, one is my favorite, but, like, you know, I'm not really ranking the exercise as my favorite exercise. These are just our 5 favorite, right? So the landmine press is great because it's very friendly on the shoulders. You can change the angles. You know, you can have, so I have this handle. That's called the Viking press handle if you wanted to do a 2-arm press, but typically, you know, we're doing a 1-arm press, so what Dennis is talking about, we're doing that offset load. And the way it works, the core musculature, the shoulder, you can change positions with your feet. We can get into a half kneeling. There's just endless variations to press from, and you know, it works the whole system from your hands all the way to your foot. And then the angle that you're pressing at, you know, definitely has transfer to running and acceleration.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
What about you, man?
My number one, reactionary training via these things. I got Blaze Pods. In the video here, you'll see they light up randomly. There's different things that you can do with them. I actually got these Blaze Pods on their Kickstarter. So I was, because now if you get them, they're much more expensive.
Oh yeah, what do they go for now?
Oh, at least double what I paid on Kick.
Oh,
I think I want to say they're, I think close to $200 to $300 for a set now for 6 of them. I got 12, I think, for like $150 on Kickstarter, or pretty much. The app is fantastic. It comes with an app that you download. They've got programs already preset, but they have customizable, so you can set the timer or the random order, different colors, things of that nature. But what I love about it is, and don't, reactionary training for following targets on a screen has been around for quite a while. But what I love, the limiting factor to that was you were limited to the screen. Like, that's it. What I love about the Blaze Pods is the different amounts of places that you can put them. They come with little straps and suction cups. So you can, if you have bars on the up top that you can attach them to. You can have people climb up, tap it, and then you're making people climb to get to the blaze pod. You can put some on the ground. You can put them all over the place. You can put them on the window because they got the suction cups. The versatility.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen other companies releasing tracking and targeting modules, but for me, BlazePod has really set the standard for how much versatility they have, and I think the price point's fantastic. Clients love it. It's a lot of fun. You can go individual drills, one-on-one or against each other, or you can do teams. There's a lot of times we'll do teams, partner up 3-on-3. Here's your mission. Let's see how fast you can get, how many contacts you can make in 1 minute, and then the next group goes and let's see if you can beat the previous group, things like that. But it's really going to help people with tracking, which we know is kind of a lost skill. Athletes are pretty good at it, but the general public maybe a little lacking. So it's a nice way once again to introduce things that we did as kids.
Yeah, it's almost like playing tag sometimes. You're getting this random change of direction. You've got to go tap this thing. So yeah, it's like you're reaching. I remember we played that in the gym with having to dribble a basketball, didn't we?
Yeah. So dribble a basketball while you hit the blaze pod. I mean, talk about central nervous system overload. You're like, but and so even for the price point now that they're at now, it's much cheaper than the stuff that you got to buy with the fixed screens and the computer programs. I mean, those are a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, exactly. And you can place them all at different levels, like Dennis was saying.
Yeah,
so it's a great investment there.
Yeah, I'd rather pay the $300 for the versatility of the Blaze Pods with the portable app. I can take them anywhere.
Yeah.
With the other programs, you're paying thousands of dollars, and you're limited. I mean, if you're going to take the TV somewhere, you got to have a plug. You can't take it down to the beach. You can't take it out to the park with the Blaze Pods. And there's other systems out there too, portable systems. The practicality is much better. So then the versatility is there. Favorite stick drill?
So my favorite stick drill would have to be the monkey hang from the split stance.
Oh, very nice.
There's so much you can do from that stance, and there's so many areas that you can explore within the hips, within the torso, within the shoulder. I'll hang out in there for 2-3 minutes on a side, and if you're doing that, you're getting this isometric lunge, whether it's a lunge or one of the deep split knees over toe stance. So you're really owning that position, building some resiliency and work capacity in the legs. And at the same time, as we're hanging, we're working the grip, but then we can add in these reaches, and we're getting that thoracic rotation, and we're getting this nice big fascial stretch, from quad to hip to the lat to the torso. It's my go-to, whether it's a warm-up or it's my favorite recovery drill too.
Let's see.
What about you, man?
Oh man,
there's a million to choose
so
from.
many of them. I'm gonna go a little offbeat. I'm gonna do the Guitar Hero.
Okay.
I love the Guitar Hero, especially for people that are pretty much confined to sitting at a desk for their jobs and long commutes, especially here in Silicon Valley. I think it does a great job opening up the anterior hip capsule that people tend to say is a little bit tight. They're like, oh, my groin area is a little tight. So I think the Guitar Hero does a great job in helping open that up, especially along the medial tissue line of the adductors. And then really when you're pushing it here in the video, you can see as you're shifting weights to the outside leg, you can see that you're also working on dorsiflexion ability. So yes, we're targeting the adductor, opening up the groin, but here is a secondary thing where you're working on the ankle mobility in something as simple as gliding in and out on that sagittal plane to really open up that dorsiflexion. Pushing down on the stick with the offhand is really what brings tension into the whole body to really so you can feel that effect through the anterior hip capsule. So I think that's one of my favorite ones that I love it's for most of my clients. as long as they don't have problem getting down on the ground on their knees. For most of my clients, this is one of the stretches that they will typically end their workouts with. They'll start too because we can make it a dynamic movement. They can just go in and out, open up the hips before their workout, and then at the end, down regulate. Let's get in that same position, and now this time let's hold it for like 30 seconds or so, and then we'll focus on your breathing. So down regulate after your workout. So that's one of my go-to favorites now, especially for, like I said, people that are sitting in their cars and sitting at desks, and which for a lot of people here in Silicon Valley can be 12 to 14 hours of their day.
Yeah, especially right now, man, with the current rules here in Santa Clara County, everyone's online.
You think more people now sitting at home? Do you think they move a little bit more than they would at the office?
I think so.
You think so?
I hope so. I hope they just get so stir crazy being at home that they get outside. I mean, right now we're finally getting some fresh air, so you can get outside.
Yeah, we can actually see the hills.
With the rules, and then with the air quality recently, it was pretty rough.
Yeah. So yeah, people were doing some batshit stir crazy stuff, getting confined. So yeah, that's any other moves that you would recommend for any of the listeners out there?
Oh, I mean, our bow and arrow is always a go-to, yeah, because most of you out there are not working lateral chain mobility, and it's
doing those, grabbing a dumbbell and just doing lateral flexion is not what we're talking about, folks. All right. So yeah, the bow and arrow, it's a great one.
Exactly. Yep.
And we always when people get into it, we always see the same reaction. People are like, oh, that feels so good, or either that or it's actually difficult for a lot of people. But then we use the regressions if they don't have that strength or that range of motion. So we always have the regressions to that. One of my favorites that I like that's pretty difficult for a lot of people, or can be for a lot of people, is the pigeon pose. I love the way we do the pigeon pose versus traditional pigeon poses. Typically in most pigeon poses, a little too passive.
Yeah.
There you go. And really, I think it's a position I see people getting into, and they might as well be asleep. Yeah. I mean, they're rounding their backs. They're just not. They're not involved in the movement. They are not in it. I mean, they're doing it, and for the way we teach it, when we're just trying to spread the floor, pushing the stick into the ground, driving that back leg into the floor, you really light up that anterior tissue line. And then just really getting the hand and the foot to separate. You're trying to get them away from each other, pushing them in opposite directions. And then that externally loaded hip, that's what's going to feel the effect on that. That's the chain reaction that we're looking for. So in order to open up the external rotation, we're depending on that off hand and that off leg to really lengthen and push down into the ground. So there's your action, and then your external hip is your reaction.
Yeah, and then if you can't do it on the ground, do it on a table or a bench, and it's getting a good pigeon on the ground is not easy. So all the same things that Dennis talked about, just transfer that up to an elevated surface, and you'll get the same benefit. And with the stick, not only are you lighting up the whole anterior chain, but you're also able to. You have the stability, so now you can start adding in some different rotations of the upper body, and then you'll just see how that changes the way your hips work.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome, brother.
Right,
I hope everyone enjoyed today's podcast. The videos should help you out as to how we do the things that we just showed you. Give them a shot. We think you'll enjoy them. Get some benefit out of them, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of stuff that you may not have tried or aren't doing. And give us some feedback. Let us know what you think. If you try some of them and you really enjoy them, DM us. Just give us a little ping. Say, hey, man, thanks for the recommendation. I really enjoy adding this to my workout protocols. Alrighty. Well, thanks for everybody listening out there. And until next episode, be good to each other.